ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Okay, so we just saw the beginning of that chapter, the first two verses. Where we are talking about Rajavidya Rajagukhyam, king among the secrets, king among the knowledges. As we saw last time, king among the knowledge because other knowledge helps you manage samsara, keeps you going in samsara, whereas this knowledge frees you from samsara. And king among the secrets because nobody is going to think on their own that the limitlessness they seek, the fullness they seek is themselves. Forget trying to figure it out on your own. Even with elaborate teaching, it becomes difficult for people to get it. So, on their own, there is no way they are going to figure it out. You can't stumble upon the truth. Because the stumbler is the truth. Okay. The one who goes stumbling around, that person is the reality. So there's no way you're going to arrive at the truth on your own. Supposing some person says, no, on my own I got some experience, etc., etc., etc. Those are only experiences. They are not what we are talking about. Okay? Yeah. Some experiences. That's okay. Yeah. No big deal. Okay. So any questions or shall we go ahead? Then there is another Arthavada verse coming in. The third verse is another verse of Arthavada. Arthavada means exaggeration or criticism to highlight the importance of something. Okay? Or a story being told to illustrate something. All these are called as Arthavadas. Okay? So here he says, okay, Ashraddhadhana Purushaha Dharmasyasya Parantapaha Aprapya Mam Nivartante Prutyu Samsara Vartmani. He says, Asya Dhar He Parantapaha Paran Shatrun Tapyati iti Parantapaha. The one who burns up his enemies. Literally like a fire burning a field of dry grass. Similarly, Arjuna in battle would burn up his enemies. Parantapaha. He Parantapaha. Asya Dharmasya. Of this dharma, this knowledge. Okay. What knowledge? Rajavidya Rajagukhyam. That knowledge. Okay. Ashradhana. Okay. That Purusha who is Ashraddhadhana. Who doesn't have any Shraddha in this. No commitment. No giving it benefit of doubt. Remember one thing. If Shabda is a Pramana, you should have enough belief to try it out. Because a Pramana can be validated only by itself. This is very important to understand. Here was this person who could see when he was young, but after some years lost his vision. For 20 years he can't see. Various treatments they tried. Allopathy, homeopathy, naturopathy, sympathy, everything they tried. Nothing worked. Finally they discovered, hey, there is a new form of surgery available by which People like this, their sight can be restored. So they said, okay, fine, let's try it out. So the surgery was done. The ophthalmologist, the operating surgeon is very happy. Everything has gone smooth. There has been no infection, nothing during the few days that it takes to heal. And now he is removing all the bandages. The eyes were kept bandaged up. He is removing the bandage. And he tells, come on, open your eyes and see. Doctor, convince me that I can see. I have had too many disappointments. I cannot handle one more. Convince you can see. That I can see, I will open my eyes. Now what can the doctor say? He can only say, well, the surgery has been successful. There has been no infection. I'm sure you'll be able to see. That much you will tell in India. In the West, you have to be careful to, if you say this much, you can be sued if he cannot be seen. If he cannot see, he will be sued for it. But you guaranteed me sight. He can be assure you everything is fine. No, convince me. Convince me I can see and I will open my eyes. What can you do? Because the eyes alone can tell you whether they see or not. The eyes alone can tell you. Nothing else can tell you. No amount of logic can prove it. A pramana has to be validated by itself. This man should have enough trust in the procedure to say, okay, I'll open my eyes and see whether I can see or not. At least in the case of eyes, you can forcibly open his eyes. Catch those male hefty nurses to hold him down and open his eyes. Pull up his eyelids. Can be done physically. Here what can you do? You must have enough Shraddha in the Shabda Pramana to use it. Because the Shabda Pramana can validate it itself. You cannot prove Vedanta will give you moksha by using any other logic. How? What logic will you use? There is no logic. A pramana validates itself. A pramana does not require another pramana to validate. What you see with your eyes is not validated with your ears. What you hear is not validated with your smell. So each pramana has to validate itself. Yeah, they can support each other to give you a whole picture. That's a different thing. So similarly here, one must have enough Shraddha to use it. Now comes another question. You can always have a character saying, Swamiji, I studied the whole of Gita, I have read. Kuch nahi ho gaya. कछु फर्क नहीं पड़ा. Naturally, why? It is not a text you study on your own. It is something to be heard. Heard means somebody else has to explain it. And there are certain conditions to be fulfilled. The teacher has to be a Kshotriya. He should have the Shastra well with himself. The method of unfolding, etc., he must have. He should not be presenting it as an experience. He should not be saying things like, you study this, you will become free. He must be quite fairly, this vision should be clear. He must have some degree of grounding in this knowledge. All this is qualification for the teacher. You must study from someone like him or her, then you will get it. Plus, your mind also should be ready. We have seen that Viveka, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, Mumukshutvam should be there in considerable measure, in good measure. Then this knowledge can be used. Then this knowledge can be yours, not otherwise. Sorry. Now the problem is I cannot put my phone off because this is my standby in case the Wi-Fi gives me problem. Okay. Anyway, so with all these conditions are fulfilled, you will gain this knowledge. But Shraddha enough to try. We are not saying have blind belief in what the teacher says or what the Shastra says. Nobody wants blind belief. But enough belief, enough benefit about to give it a shot. Open your eyes, like, yeah. Open your eyes. Similarly, open your mind, look into the Shastra. That much should be there. If that much is there, then you can figure it out yourself. Hari is giving me some insights into myself. I'm seeing things which I never thought about myself before. Yeah, and when you're studying, there will be times when you'll slip back to old meat and potatoes thinking. Sorry, dal chawal thinking. For the South Indians, I must say curd rice thinking. Because unless you have curd rice, your meal is not over. Meaning certain conditioning that you have, you may slip back to those conditionings. Because so many years you have been living with those conditionings. But the whole attempt is to break those conditionings. Without giving in to your fear, etc. Because breaking conditions can be fearful. Can be scared about it. Because certain comfortable patterns you have to step out of. That's why very often define tapas as stepping out of your comfort zone. We all have a nice comfort zone. Within this we are very happy. Even if you are miserable, it's comfortable. No? And you have enough slogans in English that you can live by. Slogans. What is that? A known devil is better than an unknown angel. Whoever said this nonsense? I don't know. The guy is a devil, why are you sticking around? All this type of slogans we have by which we continue in our nonsense. Break those conditioning, step out of that this thing, out of your comfort zone. It's like after some workshop I did, one of my students came up and told me, Swamiji, I didn't realize this, but I am in a rut. It's a happy rut, but it's a rut all right. So I said, get out of it. Aur kya bolega? Because this is not like the story of the sparrow that was flying south. You know the story of the sparrow that was flying south for winter? I mean, it has been floating around a lot. I thought people knew that. Okay. All right. Here was a sparrow that had to fly south from the cold winter to southern climes, closer to the equator where it will be nice and warm. But it left it too late. So as it was flying, it collapsed. It was cold, frozen to the ground. Fell on the ground, it was semi-frozen. So a cow passed by and dumped something on it. So now it's feeling nice and warm because it has come out of the cow's body, therefore it's warm. And so the sparrow became unfrozen and started chirping. He started chirping. A cat came and pushed it out of that cow dung and gobbled it up. That means what? One thing, never leave things too late. Second, every person who takes a dump on you is not your enemy. Third, everyone who gets you out of that dump is not your friend. And if you are nice and warm and comfortable in the dump, don't make too much of a noise. But life is not like that. You don't get stuck in a happy rut and say, I'm fine. No, get out of that rut. For the sparrow, it is fine. That logic is fine for the sparrow. Okay? Not for you and me. Not for you and me. Okay. Then Ashraddhathanasya, he says, Mam aprapya, not gaining me, Parameshwaraha, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman, Mam aprapya, Nivartante, they fall back. Where do they fall back? Mrityu samsara vartmani. Where do they fall back? Where they were before. Samsaraha, characterized by death. Death meaning all the things that you don't want, all your sufferings, your pain, which is finally a death anyway. Okay. All that you don't want. That is samsara. Yeah. Why? No courage to get out. No courage to trust. Therefore, mam aprapya, not gaining the truth, you will fall back into the samsara. So why is it as an arthavada? It's a factual thing. Arthavada is you are already stuck in samsara. Therefore, do enough to get you out. It's a motivating statement. Don't get stuck where you are. Okay. Don't take the study of Vedanta as a time pass. Lockdown, hey. So when you interact with people in a class, अच्छा लगता है. It's much more than that. Don't take it as a psychological boost. Don't come and tell me, I want to be a better human being. Yeah. You want to be a better human being, there are so many other things to do. You don't have to come to Vedanta. Once you are a good human being, then come to Vedanta. It will work for you. Being a better human being, managing your stress, all these are fringe benefits of studying Vedanta. They are not the mainstream. Main phalam is different, is moksha. Everything else is fringe benefit. The fringe benefits attract. The fringe benefit, like a job when you are taking, salary is the main thing, but fringe benefits are attract you. Oh, you have a free membership here. Oh, okay, nice. Difficult to get into that club, so a free membership into that club. Okay. If the salary is good enough, you can afford that membership. But you don't want to spend that much of money and get it. Therefore, it's a fringe benefit. That attracts you. Similarly, a lot of things are said about Vedanta. Those are all fringe benefits. Main thing is moksha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Therefore, otherwise you will get stuck and remain in samsara. Okay. All right. Then, what is this Rajavidya? He gets into that. What is this Rajavidya? Remember, Rajavidya is king among the Vidyas, not royal knowledge. Royal knowledge will be strategy, politics, warfare, things like that. Okay, yeah. The art of war. Yeah, those will be royal knowledge. Here, king among the knowledge was. Okay. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtinaha mastani sarva bhutani nataham teshu avastitaha. Very beautifully said. Maya avyakti murtina idam sarvam tatam, by my unmanifest form, by that form of mind which nobody can see as pure consciousness, idam sarvam, idam drishti gocharam, all this that you can see, tatam is pervaded. Okay. Mastani sarvabhutani nachaham teshu avastitaha. They are in me, all of them are in, all these beings are in me, I am not in them. Very, very catchy statement. A statement that will immediately draw your attention. Why? We go about saying there is a divine spark in every one of us. We are essentially divine. What is divine? God knows. What is divine? What does the word divine mean? It has got no meaning. Na? What is divine? I'm sure in Delhi on a hot day like this, a nice soft drink is divine. Oh, simply divine. In Bombay used to get some biscuits, they used to call simply divine. Yeah, divine spark. I always ask people who say things like this, you are making the Atma into a spark plug out. Yeah, spark in you, divine spark, etc. What is all that nonsense? That's why Krishna says, I am not in them. Each one there is a divine spark. They are in me. Because if I am Ishvara, then everything that is there is in Ishvara. No. Everything is in Ishvara. Yeah. Will you say the ocean is in the wave or the wave is in the ocean? In every wave there is little bit of ocean. ये किधर से आया ये ना? From where did this nonsense come in? In every wave there is this presence of the divine ocean. It sounds nice, but it's utterly nonsensical. Can you imagine making a statement like that? In every wave there is a little bit of the divine ocean. There I can at least prove him wrong by tossing him into the ocean. Taking by the scruff of his neck and toss him into the ocean. Chalo, देखेगा अभी you are in the ocean or ocean is in you. Yeah. And if too much of the ocean gets into you, then you'll be totally in the ocean only. The wave is in the ocean. Ocean is not in the wave. Mastani sarva bhutani. Nat eshu aham avastitaha. I am not seated in them, they are seated in me. So forget about this divine spark now, okay? And then the next verse he makes a very beautiful statement. Nacha mastani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaryam bhuta bhrannacha bhutastaha mama atma bhuta bhavana. Nacha mastani cha bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaryam. Look at my divine yoga. Divine, okay? Look at my yoga. What is that? They are not in me either. Previous statement he had said they are in me. And this statement he says they are not in me either. Why? If I shift my attention to water, there is neither wave nor ocean, there is only one water. So, from the standpoint of a finite being, conscious being, shift your attention to the pure consciousness. I am not in Ishvara itself. Why? Ishvara is me, I am Ishvara. Water is the ocean, water is a wave. There is no separate wave and ocean. Can you separate the wave from the ocean? I am not talking about this wave. Hi. Okay. Yeah. There is no. Where is wave and ocean? There is only one water. Pashyame yogam aishwarya. Look at my magic. I made the things disappear. Yeah. All you require is a shift of attention from the entity called Jiva, the entity called Ishvara, to Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman, that is the content of both Jiva and Ishvara. Then what? There is neither Jiva nor Ishvara, there is only Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. One consciousness, nothing else. Is this three standpoints clear? Because it is important to have these three standpoints clear. First, the Pamara standpoint. Pamara is the uneducated. Okay. Spiritually illiterate people. There is divine spark in everyone. That he dismisses by saying, I am not in them, they are in me. I am Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam. I am the indivisible cause, the single cause, which is both material and intelligence. Therefore, everything has to be in me because I am the material for everything, like wave and ocean. Then he shifts the standpoint again to pure consciousness, the water. And he says, they are not in me. There is no I and them. There is only one consciousness. Difference kidhar hai? There is only one consciousness. Where is the difference? But Swamiji, functionally we are different. No? The moment you say functionally, where have you come? With the Bheda of Jiva and Ishvara, remember the moment you say function, it is from a finite standpoint. The Atma, the consciousness, is free from all functions. All functioning happen in the consciousness. Consciousness is free from all functioning. Consciousness is free from all functioning. I am free from all functioning. That's why in the 4th chapter we had seen a verse, Akarmani karmaya pashyet, karmani cha karmaya. याद है रहना चाहिए. Those who see action in inaction and inaction in action. Yeah, and that was those two verses. That's why he said, because the consciousness is free from all action. I am not a subject or an object of an action. I am the very content of both the subject and the object. So the moment you say functionally we are different, you come to the level of the individual and total. Yes, in your functioning, of course, you are different. Even the wise person is different. Ishvara creates the whole universe. What do you create? Confusion in people's mind. That I am good at. And in some mind, some knowledge also. Yeah, so that's where it goes. Therefore, the moment you are functional, it has come Jiva and Ishvara. Then you have to say, I am in Ishvara, Ishvara is not in me. How can Ishvara be? I am in Ishvara. Ishvara is a totality. Consciousness manifests in the totality is called Ishvara. That means total body, total mind, total knowledge, total Maya. Total ignorance is called total Maya. That is Ishvara. And the same consciousness manifests in a given body, in a given mind, in a bit of knowledge and a bit of ignorance is called Jiva. So the Jiva is in Ishvara because Ishvara is a totality. My body is in his body, part of his body. My physical body is part of the physical creation. My prana, energy, part of the cosmic energy. My mind, part of the cosmic mind. My intelligence, part of the cosmic intelligence. My ignorance, part of Maya Shakti. Where are you? कहाँ है? Where are you? समझे हम consciousness. There is only one consciousness. There is only one consciousness anyway. So that is the beauty of these 2-3 verses together. The whole thing is unfolded. So because of that you will get what they call so-called different schools of Vedanta. One is Dvaita Vedanta, pure duality. God is God, I am I. I am a Jiva, he is Kalyana Guna Sampanna. If I contemplate on him and have devotion to him, I will get Sayujyam. Meaning I will go to his loka. Whatever loka you are calling it. You become a tourist. That's all it means actually. I know quite a few people waiting for the pandemic to be over. 1.5 years we didn't go anywhere. Correct? Even I didn't go anywhere. End of July I was supposed to be in UK for the World Yoga Festival. Not there. They are not processing any visas. So I send them an article to put in their magazine so that some presence is there. And if some video conferencing or something is there, we will do that. It's okay. The people are waiting. When can we travel again? So when you get bored of local travel, you want heavenly travel. After death travel. Well, it's all samsari buddhi only. I mean, what else it is? Going to heaven, this, that, etc. I want to go and see that loka. It's a nice experience. Something. I travel around the world. Yeah, each place is own interest, but what's the big deal? Swamiji, the downs of England, they are so beautiful. Yes, they are very beautiful. You drive down and the downs are flowing, up and down. This is downs of England. Very beautiful, correct. So I went looking for land at Titwala and all, and someone was with me saying, Swamiji, I just returned from England, this is equally beautiful. I said, of course it is beautiful. Nature is nature, it's beautiful all over. So, that's very valuable. But they're wanting to be a tourist. The same thing goes on to religion also. Yeah, I want to be a tourist in heaven. Because you won't get a permanent visa anyway to any of these places. No residential visa is given to any of these places. No work visa is also given. Only tourist visa. So you need special currency for that. Yeah, special currency. It's called punya. Like how you have Bitcoin, this is special currency. And when your punya gets over, you get kicked out, back to earth. You can't overstay your... Can you overstay your visa anywhere? No, no way. Similarly here. Then, when you shift to Ishvara as totality, you will gain Vishishta Dvaita, part and whole. Ishvara is everything, I am a part of him. वो भी प्रॉब्लम है. Why? Part will always remain a part. It will never be the whole. So you contemplate on him, some of his gunas will come into you and all that. So what do I do with that anyway? And some of the gunas are already there. Jnana Shakti is there, Ichha Shakti is there, Kriya Shakti is there. I know. Enough to make my life. Or mess it up also. Both can be done. Especially that Ichha Shakti can go this side or that. Gadbad ho sakta hai. Maja aata hai. No gadbad. You burn your fingers, you burn your fingers. You'll heal, don't worry. You can always get out of a bad situation. So you are talking as though you are very, very experienced. Of course, how can I talk about it? So this is Vishishtadvaita, part and whole. They are all good for people who can't understand Lord and I are one and the same. They have their purpose, they have their use. Okay? Yeah, because if you can't understand the Lord and I are one and the same as pure consciousness, at least stick to part and whole. Now that much you can understand. Even that you can't understand. Okay, start with some bhakti. Start with that. Yeah. God's grace will be there. Some better understanding will come. An appropriate guru will send you. And you can learn and grow. सब कुछ होता है. But finally what you have to get into? न च मस्तानि च भूतानि पश्य मे योगम ऐश्वर्यम. Lord and I are not separate. There is no separation between Lord and me. There is only one consciousness that is there. Now one has to get into that. If one doesn't get into that, it's limited knowledge. Okay. न च मस्तानि भूतानि भूत भृन् न च भूतस्थः मम आत्मा भूत भावनः. If you are looking at me as Ishvara, I am the Bhuta Bhrit. I am the one who controls, masters, holds all the beings together. Nacha Bhutastaha. Don't mistake me as one small character sitting inside everyone. Spark plug in everyone. Nacha Bhutastaha. Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. It is I, the Atma itself, that is manifested as all the different beings. All the different beings are nothing but manifestation of myself. Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. This is. Yeah. So if you look at it as Ishvara, he is the one who has manifested, created everything. If you are looking at the content of Ishvara, where is the creation? Where is the creation? There is no creation. If you can see existence consciousness, if you can recognize existence consciousness, where is the creation? है ही नहीं है. It is as real as a rising sun. Something that doesn't rise, doesn't set, you enjoy. But Swamiji is functionally valid. Again that question, functionally valid. That question will come up. That's why I am bringing it up. Why? Because our whole life, our attention is on functioning. Our whole life, the attention is on functioning. Because that's what you are doing whole life. No? All your worldly wisdom is based on doing things. Even if you say, Swamiji, we are sitting in a knowledge-driven society. Tell me, when was the society not knowledge driven? When was it not knowledge driven? When we are hunters and gatherers, there's a lot of knowledge necessary to be a hunter. Otherwise, you will become the hunted. Yeah. They are very smart at encircling you. They suspect you are there, they will go around, come behind you. And you're looking where that tiger is gone, and the character is behind, thinking, what a nice breakfast this guy will make. City bred guy, lot of fat. So, मजा आएगा खाने को. So a lot of knowledge is necessary there also. So even when you are a hunter, it was knowledge driven. Gathering fruits, you should know which to take and which not to eat. No? So we are always knowledge driven only when we are not knowledge driven. We always invented things. Even the primitive man used to design clothes. The first cloth that came up was a fig leaf. Well, because before that there was nothing, so the first. Then all the leaves designing came up. I'm sure there were designers among them who created newer designs. Then how to use bark, how to use animal skin. Yeah, that's knowledge. So whatever society you are living in, knowledge of the truth is knowledge of the truth, valid. Bhuta bhrana cha bhutastaha mamatma bhavanaha. He says bhuta bhavanaha. I have manifested all the beings. It's I who is manifest. Therefore, where is the creation? There's only existence consciousness. You take anything, book, we have seen it before. You break it down, there's nothing but existence. Anything you see, existence consciousness alone. Because the whole world is nothing but forms of existence. Some have consciousness also manifest, some don't have consciousness manifest. इतना ही फर्क है. This table that I am banging on. Once upon a time it was conscious. Why? It was a tree. Then we killed it. And you say we killed it, it doesn't sound nice. No? We gave that jiva moksha from being trapped in a tree body. It's very painful to be trapped in a tree body. Yeah. Men and animals do all sorts of stuff on me. Just imagine this Brahmana in this lifetime believes a lot in Shuddham, Maitam, all that stuff, you know. Because of some Papa Karma, next lifetime is tree. And what do people do? What do dogs do on the tree? And this character is inside, is dying inside. Oh my God, what is all this? He said, he was a Brahmana in this lifetime, where he can stand pain and things like that. And children come and will break a twig off, will break a branch off. And this guy is saying, ayo, 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 all the time, inside. Poor guy. That is why it's called Papa Yonis. So, that doesn't mean you go on chopping every tree and saying, I'm giving moksha to all of them. Okay, no. Let them do some seva. Yeah, they are overcoming their papa karmas by their seva of giving tons and tons of oxygen to. That's seva. They are overcoming all the prior. That's prayaschitta for the papa karma in their previous lifetime. So next lifetime can be nice. They can come for moksha. Why? He got some samskara of this knowledge. Why? Some sadhu held a satsang under that tree. वो भी होता है. Nice things also happen under trees. Yeah. So he listened to that. I can't understand it. It takes to be a human being to understand. I can understand when he's pointing out the suffering, etc. Samsara I can say. So the whole thing goes. So where is all this what apparent play of existence consciousness? Isn't that all that is there? There is no real creation. The whole what is there is only existence consciousness. How many of you heard that lecture I had given to that students from Institute of Science? Okay, Vivekananda Kendra Institute of Science has put up that lecture on YouTube. Okay, now look at it. This is an object. Let's look at it from the standpoint of science. How do you say that there is a book? You see it. Correct? What is it that you see? You see here or you see there actually? The thought is in your mind, no? Then you feel it. Smooth. Touch. Where are the sensations? Back in your brain. Smell of paper. Smell back in your brain. I don't want to taste it because book is sacred. So where are all the sensations? Where is the book? What you call as an object outside is nothing but series of sensations. Correct or not? That's what is there. It's only sensations. Thoughts. You put all of them together in a one concept and called it book. That's why science says there is no event without an observer. But what is his observation? Is the observer and observed really different? They are tied together in a nice samsaric dance. Yeah. So you mean the world is there because I see it? From one standpoint, yes. But if the book was not there, would you see it? If the book was not there, would you see it? No. So which came first? Perception of the book or the book? You can never say. This is called anyonya ashraya, mutual dependence. I can see the book only if the book is there. But I can say the book is there because I see it. Therefore, the observer and the observed have a mutual dependence. The status of observer and observed has a mutual dependence, proving both are mithya. Both are dependent realities. Therefore, what is the independent reality? Nachamastani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaryam. They are not in me. All that is there is only one existence consciousness. One existence consciousness alone appears as a whole universe. Appears. Not really there. It's purely cognitive, not experiential. Don't think you can experience the absence of the whole world. Huh? Swamiji, when will the world disappear like that? The world can disappear anytime you want. When you go to sleep, what happens? The world disappears. So that experience you have anyway. You don't need separate experience. Swamiji, when will I be awake and the world disappear? What games you want to play? You've fallen in love with magic tricks as a kid and you still want to have those magic tricks. Here, look at this magic. What is this thing called book? Nothing but a form of existence awareness. Book, paper, wood pulp, hydrocarbons, remember all that? Molecules, atoms. What is the final thing? Pure existence. So holding the book, you see it, this is not there. What is there is only pure existence awareness. This is Krishna's magic, okay? I am only putting it in words. His words I am echoing, that's all I am doing. Look at the magic here. Pashyame Yogam Aishwaryam. There is no book, there is only existence consciousness. Kidhar hai book? Existence consciousness, this form is called a book. Okay. So there is no real book. Yeah, there is no real book. But you can, it's good enough for you to read. It is good enough for you to read. It is good enough for you to take to the class. It's good enough for all that. It has got functional validity. Vyavahara Yogyam we'll call it. Whereas the snake you see on the rope does not have that functional validity. You can't extract its venom. Yeah, there is some YouTube videos about someone drinking this snake venom. This is a big thing. All of you can drink snake venom, nothing will happen to you. Unless you have a cut in your mouth or stomach ulcers, nothing will happen to you if you drink snake venom. Why? It's only a protein. It's only a protein. So unless you have some cut in your mouth where it can enter the bloodstream, or an ulcer in the stomach where it can enter your bloodstream, nothing will happen to you. Yeah, it's just a protein. It will be digested. It may be a little toxic for you to handle it. You may have some little indigestion, etc. But nothing more than that. Drinking snake venom will not do any harm to you. But putting it on a scratch in your skin can do harm. Because it has to enter the bloodstream in the same molecular structure for it to create damage to you. So you cannot extract the venom from the snake that you saw on the rope. Therefore not Vyavahara Yogya. Certain things are Vyavahara Yogya. The rope is Vyavahara Yogya. Especially when things go wrong. So that is the whole thing. This is Rajavidya Rajaguhyam. This is the Rajavidya that is there. This is a Guhyam. It's secret. Why? Because unless revealed, it won't be understood. Even if it is revealed with elaborate examples, teaching, etc., a lot of thinking has to be done before it can really understand it and make it a fact of your life. But think it over. Any questions?
Swamiji?
Yeah.
So, the functional life, is it that we give too much importance to the functional life?
Yeah.
And the purpose of functional life is to create situations for us so that we can grow.
Yeah.
Is that how we should look at it? And
yeah. So it can grow until you reach the truth. Correct. Until you know the truth. Then you are free from the function.
So that's why the whole...
Yeah.
Because why we are exported to...
True. You need the functional to grow. Correct. And somebody said, Swamiji, there were Vishakanyas in olden days. See, there's a myth of the Vishakanyas that they were fed a diet of poison, so they were immune to the poison. Maybe, we don't know, though don't try it. Because there is also something known as cumulative effect of the poisons in your system. But one thing was there, these girls were assassins. Vishakanyas were assassins. Beautiful girls. Okay. Very capable in seducing. And when a man starts thinking not between what is between his ears, but between something else, then he lets down his guard too much. Easier to slip him some poison, etc. And they were experts in the use of poison. With day-to-day things, they could convert things into a poison. So the myth of the Vishakanya came up that, they were fed with poison, so kissing them or getting intimate with them could kill you. No, that is a myth. That is a myth. They were expert in assassins and the use of poison. Because right through history, poison as a weapon was very effectively used by women assassins. Men had cruder systems, You use a gun or a knife or a bow and arrow or something like that. To use poison, you have to get close to the person. So women used it very effectively. So the Vishakanyas were expert assassins. Chandragupta Maurya had a huge group of it, under Chanakya actually. He had a whole group of Vishakanyas. They are historically recorded. They're great. Expert assassins. Okay, good place to stop. Take care. Enjoyed being with all of you. Okay. Om Tat Sat.